Hello Sea Wolves and welcome back to the show. So a lot has happened over the last 48 hours, a lot to discuss, some very fun things going on in the Imoca fleet. But before we do any of that, I have some very fresh, delicious, it's still very steamy as you can see, coffee here. I hope you have something delicious in your perhaps official Sea Wolf mug available here below the video. Here we go, 3, 2, 1, cheers!
3 hours into the repair, we've managed to effectively just stitch the back end of the sail together there. So we should be able to use reef 1 now. Now we've just got a bit of stitching to do on this bit here. So now we've just lashed the two parts together using this Dyneema cord. There we go. Reef 1 hopefully we can use now. We've just tied the sail together. All we can do is test it now. Back to the gate. I'm just tucked up in the corner of the cockpit. It's a really comfortable place to be when you're on watch, and you've got great view of the sails forward. I can see all the instruments. And I'm just sitting on a rather soggy beanbag, but it's comfortable and that kind of cushions the slamming. It's important to kind of find the rhythm, get into it, find a time when you feel comfortable. And the first few days have been so hectic, and having to do that big repair on the main just kind of stopped all of that from happening. But now it's quite nice that we just had a bit of time just to sail, actually do some sailing, fancy that. And I'm enjoying it, just feeling the boat, imagining what it's going to be like to spend 70, 80 days doing this on the Bondi and thinking, yeah, I'll have a bit of that.
Ooh. Nice, and good to see, of course, that the sail is fixed again and Pip is back under way. But let's get to a bit broader view of the Imoca fleet. So something really cool has happened, something I was kind of a little bit hoping would happen. As I talked about several episodes ago now, we kind of, from the moment that we started, had an option to go west into the more wild west because of this over the Azores High kind of spreading out all over the Atlantic and sort of really blocking their way. Now what we've seen, if you look at the tracker also you see this, that basically everybody has opted to just kind of plow through. There was still a little bit wind quite close to the coast when Charal and the leaders got there, but as you can see now it's just a total wall of basically high pressure and very little wind right there. And so a bit later in the game than I originally anticipated, but we now finally, and you can see it very clear here on the tracker, we now finally have at least 2 and maybe more, because there's actually a few that are now also in that direction. So I think maybe a few other captains are kind of seeing the hanging on the wall and figured, well, we don't want to waste several days here with almost no wind. Let's just go west and see what happens. But teamwork.net and Groupe DUBREUIL have kind of made the choice already about 15 hours ago, and as you can see they've made their way west, and actually technically speaking they're currently in position number 1 and 2, because of course the leaderboard is kind of calculated by distance to the ultimate destination, to Martinique down here, and of course this is a little bit tricky because for my mind technically it really depends on the weather who's going to make it now. But what is really cool about the situation is that we have a clear leader, Charal basically dominating the field so far from the beginning of the race. And so when we look at the entire pack, Charal clearly in the lead there, and Sam Davis doing really well right behind, and of course Thomas Rouillant also having a great race so far on For the People. So that was kind of clear, right? But for everybody behind that, to follow them through the weather is sort of saying, in a way, like, okay, we're not going to win this. You know, like you know, if you're behind them and you're going the same route, that you're not going to overtake them. You're just not going to win this. But there was all the time one other option where, you know, where you have a totally different weather system, a totally different set of luck to kind of bet on. And now we finally see that, you know, at least two boats, but I think actually that by the looks of it, freelance.com and Medallia, so maybe Pip also, I think have decided finally to try this western route. Now, of course, the danger of that is that once you get away from the big group, which I talked about also in the last episode, once you go away from the main group, then you are going to have different weather, right? And so if you stay with the main group, you're going to stay at least close to that group. Whatever trouble they run into, you're going to run into. Whatever advantages they get, you're probably going to get them as well. So you're going to stay relatively close to the rest, right? When you really opt for a different route, which they now have done, you're going to get presumably a completely different set of weather. And you might get extremely lucky, but you also might get extremely unlucky. So right now, teamwork.net, Groupe DUBREUIL in one, technically speaking. Of course, in the other group, we still see Charal, Thomas Rouillant, Sam Davis, like clearly in the lead. But yeah, from now on, at least we have kind of two leaders. We have a real wild card to bet on, and I personally think that that's really a lot of fun, right? Because if you race a race really by the numbers, let's say, then you kind of almost shouldn't do that, because it's always a bit more the safer choice to just stay with the group. But I think, you know, the Imoca class, one of the reasons why I really enjoy it far more than any others is that it's an experimental class, right? All the boats are different, they're allowed to innovate, and we see what it does. Like Charal really dominating in this race so far with their just totally different rudder, totally different boat, lots of new innovations, and you can just bet that as soon as this race is over, the whole fleet's going to be scrambling. We have a year till the Vendée Globe. Maybe some of them will try to modify their rudders to actually copy what Charal has, but you know that they're all going to work to try to figure out, you know, how do we counter this clear advantage that Charal now kind of seems to have, right? And that's that skill as a sailor, but there's also some technical aspect to it. So it's not the same. It's not a level playing field, and people are constantly pulling each other up. And I think also when it comes to this type of you know, routing and sometimes kind of taking a chance, I think that really fits with an innovative class. And I think also it really makes long sailing races more interesting when there happens to be a weather situation. Of course, you don't always have that. Sometimes there's just one route, just simply the only way. But in a race like this, where there is a clear other option with a clear chance of actually maybe being better, but it's a bit wilder, it's a bit more bigger weather, it's a bit more, you know, getting closer to some more lows. So it's definitely maybe more damage option. So there are definitely some other factors going into it, but there is a chance that they might actually do a major upset now, and for example beat, you know, the current leaders by, you know, several hours or maybe even longer by the time that they get to the end. It could be like half a day difference. You know, if they go west now, you know, for example, you can see kind of where they are now, and if the weather progresses and if they find let's say a path that is like, you know, takes them kind of west much more, or it takes them more south, but much more to the west, and they're able to kind of upwind their way through that in a much faster fashion, then they could really end up being far ahead of the rest of the fleet. So yeah, personally I really kind of hope that happens, because it's always nice to see when somebody takes a big risk that it pays off. Of course, it could also go horribly wrong in the sense that, you know, if the system keeps kind of like really closed and they run much later, maybe into much wilder water with no wind, then they're gonna end up like far behind everybody else. So I guess we'll see. But anyway, I think it personally makes the race a lot more exciting and interesting to see that some really different navigational choices are being made, and I think that's also something that really makes the Imoca class in particular now very interesting to watch. So yeah, that's kind of it for the Imoca class. Lots of the minor and major damages repaired, so everybody pretty much like racing fast right now. Of course, especially the group in the calmer weather they've had some time to sail in much lighter wind, so a lot of time to kind of make small repairs and all this type of stuff.
Hi Will, what's going on here?
So we're about to deploy this drifter buoy here. We've been asked to put it in at 37 north. 4 years ago we did exactly the same thing, and so it's really nice to be able to contribute in this way to collecting scientific data while we do the racing. It's a beautiful evening for it. We've finally found some nice stable conditions, and I'm going to head out the back now and just put this over the side, and it will start collecting data as soon as it reaches the water. So let's go.
Cool, let's do it. We have done this before in 2019, and we got some comments about the dressing then. Who remembers that can win a special prize.
Then for the class 40, we see a little bit of similar thing there also. So we have Amaris now in the first position, and we see a similar thing in the sense that they also made a different choice. So they're clearly looking to kind of pass through the islands, like go somewhere through. But of course, the danger with that is that all of those islands have some wind shadow. Whilst we see that the former leaders, let's say, so that's actually still Grande Pirelli, and right now actually IPSA a little bit ahead of them, but they're clearly also making kind of a different bet. So you can see that the wind is kind of a lot more steady around the route that they've chosen, and really kind of avoids all of this kind of patches around the island where you just have a lot of wind shadow from the islands where you can kind of get stuck or slow down for a while. So they're taking a bit a longer route, but hoping for more steady wind, and I think actually in this case that's probably going to pay off. So the first position there of several other boats that are a bit more to the west now actually could be a bit deceptive in that sense that if you look at the optimum path, probably both IPSA and Grande Pirelli still kind of actually 1 and 2, but it's not really reflected in the leaderboard. And we see still that the second group, so kind of the laggards behind, still from that setback in the Bay of Biscay, now entering the high, and we see a lot of boat speeds there of 3 knots, 4 knots, sometimes even 0 knots. So they're definitely going to have to spend a little bit time in there, but hopefully also some time for repairs on that front. Then of course the all teams, because after the lead change about 48 hours ago now, where Max Banque Populaire kind of grabbed it back from SVR Les Artigues, we basically see them actually nicely building out their lead now. And they're pretty much on an optimum course. Weather-wise, it doesn't seem like they're going to be running into any crazy surprises. So if they can keep up what they're doing now, and even right now, speed 31.2 knots versus SVR Les Artigues, which is doing 28. So if all goes well, then I think probably maybe a day and a half more, and then they're going to be in Martinique, and then we'll have to congratulate Max Banque Populaire and Armel Leclerc and Sébastien José for an excellently done race. Of course, hot on their heels SVR Les Artigues and the Edmond de Rothschild. I see that they're doing 30.9 knots right now again, so very fast, so seems okay. But the latest news is that they hit something again, unfortunately, and had quite some damage to one of their rudders. So not exactly sure how bad the damage is if they're still doing such good speeds. They are a bit on an unusual tack, it looks like, so maybe they can go fast but not really optimally in the direction that they want to go in. I don't know, maybe in the next update we'll have some more news on that, but so far they seem to be okay in the race. Same for Sodibu and for actual just making good speed, and as far as I've seen no reports of any other damages. Then the Ocean 50, yeah, so we talked about it last time also, a bit of a decimated fleet with basically half the fleet still left, but they're doing really well right now. So Solidaires and Peloton still in first place and have extended their lead quite a bit now. So they're up to about a little bit over 200 nautical mile lead. So that's pretty, even with their speeds, which is, you know, generally like 25 knots and up, it's still a pretty nice, like almost a half a day, almost like a day long lead. So pretty cool. Realités in 2, so they've actually skipped up one place, and Via Basse Oceans in 3 now, but all making good speeds and good heading, so they should be able to pass the Cape Verdes correctly and then make their downwind rush towards Martinique, hopefully without any further problems or damage.
Nous sommes jeudi sur la Transat Jacques-Vabre, Normandie-le Havre. Et c'est les alizés. On a pris ça là-bas. Et voilà, les alizés, c'est pas que du tranquille.
Now, if you've been watching Sea Wolves again for the last few days and you're thinking to yourself, you know what? I would actually really love to own a class 40 yacht and be able to, you know, maybe participate in some actual class 40 racing. Well, then I have some good news for you, because a good friend of mine, Chris, is actually has been racing in the class 40s and is actually moving kind of up in the world to a even more awesome class 40 than he had already. He had a beautiful Pogo 40, which he's actually right now putting up for sale. So I put a link below in the description. You can see a little bit beautiful, some drone images of it here. And hull 46, if I'm not mistaken. Beautiful, fast boat. There's also much earlier in the Sea Wolf archive a video of him actually kind of doing a tour of it. So if you want to look how it all looks on board, I'll actually link that video below also. But yeah, just in case any of you is interested, just shoot me an email or contact Chris directly. Also, you can find to the links his contact details, and you know, maybe we can connect you guys and we'll have a proud new owner for a beautiful race boat. So with that, I hope you all have a great weekend and see you in the next update. Ciao, ciao.